let's cover the AFC West first, because that's where the Super Bowl champion is. The Chiefs coming off the Super Bowl. There hasn't been a repeat winner since the 03-04 season when the Patriots did it. So what do you think the chances are the Chiefs do it again?
I think the Chiefs are in pretty good shape to at least make a run at it, because if you look at the AFC as a whole, it's not very stacked. I mean, the Patriots don't have Tom Brady, so they're a question mark for the first time in 20 years. And the Ravens were great last year, but they've had some offseason losses on the offensive line that could impact Lamar Jackson. He may have to run a little bit more, which, I mean, he can do as well as anyone. But if you take away that running, will he be able to sit in the pocket and do well? You don't know. And then, I like the Colts. I know you do too, but there's no clear-cut challenger to the Chiefs. You'd have to find a defense that can really contain Patrick Mahomes, and right now that doesn't exist. So, and if not a defense that can contain Mahomes, an offense that can go toe-to-toe with him. And, that also doesn't really exist right now. So Mahomes alone makes the Chiefs probably the biggest threat in the AFC. But if you look at what he has just in terms of offensive weaponry, that gives him a little bit of a boost. And I think the defense is a little bit underrated too. I don't love their secondary, at least at the corner position, especially since they lost Kendall Fuller. But Charvarius Ward played well at times last year. And I think their pass rush is good with Frank Clark and Chris Jones and all them up front. So I think the Chiefs are poised to have another really strong season. And they should push for a Super Bowl. They just kind of have everything going for them, and they don't have any real glaring weaknesses, at least not ones that Mahomes can't overcome.
Yeah, something I like about them a lot, especially in this offseason where players can't really interact with each other like that well as normal, is that they have most of their team returning. Like most of their core players will be back. You mentioned Kendall Fuller. He's really the only player of significance who's not going to be around. So I like the Chiefs a lot for that reason. And I think that's going to be a big thing. Continuity in this offseason is going to be huge. But yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is the ultimate weapon right now. He's the best quarterback in the NFL. We thought he was going to lose Sammy Watkins this offseason. That didn't happen. There was some speculation Demarcus Robinson would be traded. That didn't happen. Chris Jones, there's some trade rumors out there that he was going to be dealt. That didn't happen. I mean, everyone's coming back. Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in the NFL. I expect him to get the most out of his team once again. And I think there's a good chance this team repeats. I usually don't like, predicting a team to repeat. I very seldom do it in my season previews. But I have to say my Super Bowl winner isn't out yet, but I'm strongly leaning toward the Chiefs.
Yeah, there's really no reason to expect them to be less competitive. I guess the one thing you could possibly harp on as a reason maybe not to trust them, I don't think they have particularly great depth on the offensive line. I know they drafted Lucas Niang, who has a lot of upside at tackle, but he's far from a proven thing. And Mike Remmers is probably that versatile super sub veteran that they'll use. But I think if they have a couple injuries up front, they could really be in trouble. But even still, so long as they have Patrick Mahomes and he doesn't go down, they're going to be competitive. And we've seen teams in the past, especially more recently, make moves near the trade deadline in the NFL, which wasn't really a thing 10 plus years ago, but has become more of a thing now. So if they find they have a weakness in the secondary, or maybe say there's a linebacker available that they feel can make a difference for them, they can go out and get them, build around this team now, try to win now as much as they can before Mahomes signs the massive extension that he's due, and just really, really target another Lombardi. So I think it's fair to assume that they're going to have a good chance to repeat. There's nothing really to dislike about this team. Like you said, there's been minimal offseason losses, and I really think the only weakness is the cornerback position.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I can't even imagine what Mahomes' contract is going to be like. It's going to be absurd. It's going to be ridiculous. Anyway, with the offensive line, they had offensive line injuries last year that they overcame. Eric Fisher was out weeks 3 through 10. Andrew Wiley missed 6 through 8. And then Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, Dr. Duvernay-Tardif missed weeks 9 through 10. And yet this team was so competitive, with Mahomes missing 2.5 games, Tyreek Hill missing about 4 weeks or so. This team was still great. I know they really took off in the second half of the year, but they were still in position to make that run in the second half. So Yeah, like I said, wouldn't surprise me at all if they won the Super Bowl again. But if let's just say if Mahomes goes down for half the season or longer, like worst case scenario, which of the other teams in this division, like who would you say is the favorite to win otherwise?
That's a good question. I think my gut is telling me that it would probably be Denver because I think that they have a really well balanced team, and I think they have more upside than the Raiders, who would probably be my second pick. Just because Drew Lock, we only saw him in 4 games last year, but he immensely improved from the preseason to his regular season action, and I think he could really take the leap if he continues to improve on his game. I really like what he has and what the Broncos have done this offseason to build around him.
I agree. The Broncos had a lot of bad luck last year. They were 7-9 in weeks 2 and 4. They lost on the last drive due to like bogus Von Miller roughing the passer penalties, and then they had a game in week 11 in Minnesota, and they were up. I believe it was like 23-3 or something like that. They blew the lead to Minnesota. Minnesota came back. That was with Brandon Allen playing quarterback. Like that wasn't even Drew Lock. So this team could have easily had 3 more wins and finished 10-6 last year. Now they add, obviously in the draft, they get Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. So like a lot of people made big waves about that. And I love the Jeudy pick. Not sure if Hamler can contribute right away, but I think down the road he can. But Jeudy should definitely improve the offense, like no doubt. But I like some of the moves they made otherwise. I mean, they signed Graham Glasgow, who should improve the offensive line. Then they traded for Jarrell Casey, which I thought was crazy. Casey's, he's not the elite player he once was, but he's still great. He should definitely improve the defensive line. And I think, with Chubb and Von Miller on the outside, you have Casey in the middle. Like I think this defense can still be great, especially with AJ Bouye playing corner now. The one concern I have with Denver is their offensive line. Garrett Bowles is a penalty machine. And then you have Jawan James at right tackle, who barely played at all last year. If James can stay healthy, I don't really trust Bowles to improve, but if James can stay healthy, I think Denver should make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the offensive line being the biggest area for improvement. I did like the Glasgow signing. I also like their draft pick of Lloyd Cushenberry III. I think he's a good option at the center position, or at least give some competition on that offensive line. I also was a fan of the Albert Okwuegbunam pick in the 4th round. I think like that has a chance to really pan out because Okwuegbunam's ceiling is just so high. He was probably the best overall tight end in terms of talent and receiving talent in this class, but injury and maturity issues, I think, dropped him to the 4th round. But if you pair him with Noah Fant and Jeff Hireman, who I am a big fan of, I just like him as a solid backup tight end. Like he's one of those guys who's not anything really that special, but I happen to like him. I think the tight end core that Denver has is pretty solid. Now they're not hoarding as many tight ends as Chicago or Seattle is, but they're pretty close, pretty high up there with the guys they have on their roster. And I think Casey's addition to the defensive line, like you said, is huge too. They were kind of underrated in that area, at least in terms of the interior defensive line options they have, because Mike Purcell and Shelby Harris are 2 solid players. They're nothing special, but you add a guy like Casey who has been a proven pass rushing talent to those guys who are pretty good against the run, and add in Miller and Chubb on the outside. It's gonna be fun to watch, and it should be pretty good. Now, again, the concern I have with the Broncos is probably, aside from their offensive line, the secondary, just because their cornerback position. I like AJ Bouye. I don't think he's worth the contract he has, but he's a good player. It's the position across from him I'm worried about. I think Isaac Yiadom and Michael Ojemudia are gonna kind of challenge for that spot on the outside number 2 corner, with Bryce Callahan playing the slot if he can stay healthy. He couldn't last year. So I think that's going to be an interesting position battle to watch, because Yiadom had some trouble there last year, and that's coming from me, and I'm a BC Eagles fan. So it's hard for me to go against guys that went there, but he hasn't been great. So we'll see if they can find a player there, and if Bouye can continue to play well and doesn't regress. But if they can just find a way to succeed in the secondary, I think they should make the playoffs, like you said.
I like their safeties though, so I think that's nice for them. If Bouye doesn't regress, I think they're going to be fine. I agree that their secondary is not ideal; like they need upgrades at corner. But I think if you have a great pass rush, you can kind of negate that a little bit. I remember the Steelers won the Super Bowl back in 2006, and one of the reasons why I didn't think they would do it is because I didn't trust their offensive line at all. Or is it '05? They won in '05. Right. Yeah. So I didn't like their offensive line at all. But I thought that, or I didn't like the secondary at all, but I thought that their pass rush really made up for that, and it really helped them win the Super Bowl. So I think you can get away with like 1 weak corner, I guess, or with the slot. Yeah, like you have 2 weak corners, but they have one solid one. They have good safeties. They have a great pass rush. So I think that the Broncos can make the playoffs. I don't expect them to win the Super Bowl or anything, but I think that they can get there.